Chapter 1. The storm outside and inside. The rain was hitting the windshield so hard I could barely see the road ahead. But honestly, the blur in front of me wasn't just the storm, it was the tears stinging my eyes. It was 11:42 p.m. on a Tuesday. In the backseat of my sedan sat two overflowing duffel bags, hastily packed with mismatched clothes, a stray toothbrush, and a few loose chargers. On the passenger seat lay a shattered picture frame. Inside it was a photo of my wedding day, 5 years ago. Sarah and I were laughing under a canopy of white roses, looking like two people who had discovered the secret to eternal happiness. How did I get here? How does a man go from being a husband with a beautiful suburban home to sleeping in a cold Walmart parking lot? The answer was simple, yet utterly mind-blowing. I bought my 65-year-old mother a birthday gift. Let's back up a bit. My name is David. I'm a 32-year-old software engineer. I've always considered myself a mild-mannered, deeply committed guy. When I married Sarah, I thought I was entering a partnership built on mutual respect. Sarah was ambitious, sharp, and fiercely independent. I loved that about her. But over the years, that fierce independence turned into something else, a rigid control over every single aspect of our lives, especially our finances. We both made good money. I pulled in 6 figures, and Sarah wasn't far behind as a marketing director. Yet, because of Sarah's deep-seated anxiety about the future, we lived under a strict regime. Every dollar was tracked, every grocery receipt was audited. We had a shared spreadsheet called the master plan. If something wasn't on the spreadsheet, it didn't exist. At first, I went along with it. I wanted to build a secure future too. But there was one major point of friction that the spreadsheet could never fully calculate: my mother, Evelyn. My dad passed away when I was 12. After his death, my mother worked 2 jobs, one as a school cafeteria worker and another cleaning office buildings at night, just to ensure I had food, clothes, and an education. She ruined her knees and her back for me. She never complained, not once. Now, she lived alone in a tiny, cramped 1-bedroom apartment on the old side of town, surviving on a meager social security check. For the past 3 years, her arthritis had gotten progressively worse. The winters were brutal on her joints. For her 65th birthday, I wanted to do something that wasn't just a generic card or a bouquet of flowers that would die in a week. I wanted to give her something that would actually change the quality of her daily life. 2 weeks before her birthday, I visited her. I watched her struggle to stand up from her old, sagging armchair. Her face contorted in pain, though she quickly tried to hide it with a smile when she noticed me looking. "Are you okay, Mom?" I asked, kneeling beside her. "Oh, just the weather, sweetie," she whispered, her hands trembling slightly. "The old bones don't like the cold. Don't you worry about me." But I did worry. That night, I went online and found a state-of-the-art orthopedic medical recliner. It had built-in gentle heating, automatic lifting mechanisms to help her stand without straining her knees, and premium lumbar support. It was expensive, $2,400. I knew I couldn't just buy it out of our joint account without a massive argument, so I decided to use my personal fund money allowance, a small monthly stipend that Sarah and I had agreed each of us could spend with 0 questions asked. I had been saving my allowance for nearly 8 months, skipping lunches and cutting back on my own small hobbies just to amass enough. I didn't see any issue with it. It was my saved money, meant for my mother's health. I placed the order, setting the delivery date for her actual birthday. I felt a profound sense of pride and excitement. I couldn't wait to see the look on her face. I didn't tell Sarah, not because I thought I was doing something wrong, but because I knew her reaction would tarnish the joy of the gesture. Sarah viewed any resource given to my mother as a direct theft from our future kingdom. I thought, it's my fun money. It's a surprise. I'll tell her after it's delivered. Asterisk. That was my fatal mistake. Chapter 2, The Audit. On Tuesday evening, I came home around 6:30 p.m. The house was quiet, but it wasn't a peaceful quiet. It was the kind of heavy, pressurized stillness that precedes a devastating tornado. Sarah was sitting at the dining room table. The laptop was open, casting a harsh blue glow across her face. Her posture was rigid, her jaw locked. In front of her lay a stack of printed papers. My heart dropped. I recognized the formatting of those pages. They were bank statements and delivery tracking notifications. "Hey, babe," I said cautiously, setting my briefcase down. "Everything okay?" Sarah didn't look up immediately. She slowly closed the laptop screen halfway, turned her head, and fixed me with a gaze so cold it made my blood run stagnant. "Where is it, David?" she asked, her voice dangerously quiet. "Where is what? Don't play stupid with me," she snapped, her voice rising an octave. She slammed her hand down on the printed papers. I was looking through our Amazon business and household accounts to reconcile the monthly budget, and I noticed a lingering tracking notification tied to our primary delivery address template. A freight delivery, scheduled for this Friday, to your mother's apartment. I took a deep breath, trying to keep my voice steady and de-escalate the situation. "Oh, yeah, I was going to tell you tonight, actually. It's a birthday gift from my mom. It's her 65th. A birthday gift." Sarah let out a sharp, mocking laugh. "David, this isn't a gift. This is a luxury piece of medical furniture." I called the vendor pretending to verify the invoice. $2,400. Are you insane, Sarah? Look at me, I pleaded, stepping closer to the table. I didn't touch our savings. I didn't touch our joint checking. I saved that money from my personal allowance over the last 8 months. I didn't buy clothes. I didn't buy video games. I brought leftovers to work every single day. That money belonged to my discretionary fund. I had the right to spend it. Sarah stood up, knocking her chair backward. It hit the hardwood floor with a loud crack. "The right? You think you have the right to throw away $2,400 on a glorified chair when we are trying to pay off the mortgage? When we are trying to build an investment portfolio? It doesn't matter whose allowance it came from, David. We are a team. That money should have been channeled back into our shared goals." "Our shared goals?" I asked, feeling a spark of anger finally ignite in my chest. "Sarah, my mother can barely stand up. Her knees are completely shot from decades of physical labor. Labor she did to make sure I could go to college and get the job that pays for this very house we are standing in. I wanted to give her some comfort in her old age. Why is that a crime to you? Because she is a bottomless pit of financial liability," Sarah yelled, her face flushing crimson. "First it's a chair, then what? Her medical bills, her rent, moving her into our guest bedroom. I didn't marry your mother, David. I married you, and I will not allow my hard-earned financial security to be bled dry by an old woman who didn't plan properly for her own retirement." The words felt like a physical blow to my face. "Don't you dare talk about her like that," I whispered, my voice shaking with a mixture of rage and profound hurt. "She didn't plan for retirement because every extra penny she had went into my future. She sacrificed her body for me. This is the least I can do." "Well, you can do it on your own time," Sarah cold-facedly replied. She reached into her pocket, pulled out her phone, and tapped the screen. "I've already transferred all the liquid funds from our joint account into my personal account for safekeeping until you get your head on straight. And right now, I want you out." I stared at her, completely paralyzed. "What did you say?" "You heard me," she said, her voice dropping back to that terrifying, calm chill. "If you think your loyalty belongs to your mother over your wife, then go live with her. Go sleep on her floor. Pack a bag and get out of my house." "Your house, Sarah? I pay 60% of the mortgage. And I own 50% of the deed, and right now, I am making a boundary. I cannot look at you. I cannot sleep in the same bed as a man who secretly funnels thousands of dollars out of our household economy behind my back. Get out, David, now, before I call the police and tell them you're making me feel unsafe." The threat was the final nail in the coffin. I looked at the woman I had loved for 7 years, the woman I had promised to protect and cherish, and realized she had become a complete stranger. She was willing to weaponize the law and destroy my life over a gift meant to ease an old woman's physical pain. Without saying another word, I walked upstairs. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely fold my clothes. I threw whatever I could grab into 2 duffel bags. As I walked down the stairs, Sarah stood by the front door, her arms crossed, watching me like a warden overseeing an eviction. I grabbed my car keys, picked up the framed wedding photo from the hallway table, and threw it hard against the floor. The glass shattered into 1,000 jagged pieces. "Happy anniversary," I muttered, and walked out into the pouring rain. Chapter 3, The Parking Lot Chronicles. The clock on the dashboard read 2:14 a.m. The rain had slowed to a miserable drizzle. I had driven around aimlessly for hours, too embarrassed to call a friend, and too fiercely protective of my mother to turn up on her doorstep in the middle of the night and cause her a panic attack. So, I parked in the back corner of a 24-hour Walmart lot, rolled up my jacket to use as a pillow, and stared at the gray fabric of my car's ceiling. Every time I closed my eyes, the look of utter contempt on Sarah's face burned through my eyelids. How could someone's heart become so calcified by money? We weren't poor. We had over $80,000 in liquid savings, not including our retirement accounts. A $2,400 expenditure from my own saved money wasn't going to bankrupt us. It wasn't even going to dent our lifestyle. It was about pure, unadulterated control. My phone buzzed on the console. I grabbed it quickly, a foolish glimmer of hope rising in my chest that maybe Sarah had calmed down, realized her cruelty, and was texting me to come home. It was a text from my bank. Alert. Your joint checking account balance is below the threshold. Current balance. $0. Asterisk. She really did it. She wiped out the account. She left me with nothing but the money in my personal checking, which was currently sitting at roughly $350 after buying the chair. I let out a dry, breathless laugh that sounded more like a choke. I was a six-figure earning professional, and I was functionally broke and homeless because I loved my mom. Sleep didn't come that night. Instead, a cold, hard resolve began to form inside me. The sadness began to evaporate, replaced by a profound, crystal-clear realization: my marriage was over. And it wasn't just over because of the eviction, it was over because the core values that defined me as a human being, gratitude, empathy, familial love, were entirely incompatible with the woman I had married. The next morning, I used the bathroom at a local diner, washed my face with cold water, bought a large black coffee, and drove to work. I sat in my cubicle, staring at lines of code, feeling like a ghost moving through a world of living people. My manager, Marcus, noticed my disheveled appearance and the fact that I was wearing the same shirt from the day before. During lunch, he knocked on my cubicle wall. "Hey, Dave, you got a minute?" I followed him into his private office. He closed the door and sat down. "Look, man, you look like you've been run over by a semi-truck. Is everything okay at home?" I hesitated. The shame of being kicked out was overwhelming. But Marcus wasn't just my boss, he had been a mentor to me for 4 years. I broke down and told him everything: the chair, the allowance, Sarah wiping the accounts, the threat of the police. Marcus listened in absolute silence, his expression growing darker by the minute. When I finished, he leaned back in his chair and rubbed his temples. "David," he said gently, "first of all, you're not staying in your car tonight. I have a fully furnished guest cottage behind my house. It's completely empty. My wife and I use it for out-of-town relatives. You are staying there for as long as you need. No rent, no arguments." Tears sprang to my eyes, hot and sudden. "Marcus, I can't accept that." "Shut up." "Yes you can," he ordered with a warm but firm smile. "Second, as your boss, I'm telling you to take the rest of the week off. Paid. You need to get a lawyer, David. Today. What your wife did, wiping out joint accounts and threatening false police reports, is not just malicious, it's a massive legal blunder on her part during a separation. You need to protect yourself." He handed me a business card from his desk drawer. "This is Arthur Vance. He's a high-conflict divorce attorney. He's a shark, but he's a shark with a conscience. Call him right now." Chapter 4, Meet the Shark. Arthur Vance's office didn't look like a typical lawyer's office. There were no dark mahogany walls or dusty leather-bound books. It was sleek, modern, and bright, located on the top floor of a downtown skyscraper. Arthur himself was a man in his late 40s, wearing a tailored gray suit, with sharp blue eyes that seemed to analyze me before I even sat down. I laid out the facts of the case, presenting my bank statements, the receipt for the medical chair, and the text messages Sarah had sent me right after the fight, which read, "Don't come back here until that chair order is cancelled and the money is returned to our household economy. You chose your mother over your family." Asterisk. Arthur leaned back, tapping his gold pen against his chin. A slow, calculating smile spread across his face. "Mr. Miller," Arthur said, his voice smooth and reassuring, "your wife has made a classic mistake. She let her emotional rage completely override her tactical intelligence. In the state of Illinois, wiping out a joint account right before a separation without a court order or mutual consent is looked upon very unfavorably by family court judges. It's considered dissipation of marital assets or financial coercion." "What about the house?" I asked. "She threw me out, threatened to call the cops." "Constructive eviction," Arthur replied instantly. "She locked you out of a property you legally own and contribute to, using the threat of a false domestic disturbance report as leverage. That is a form of domestic abuse, specifically, legal and emotional extortion. Did you record her making that threat? No, I said, deflating. Slightly. I was too shocked. That's fine. Her text messages heavily imply the coercion. She literally states you cannot return unless you comply with her financial demands regarding your own separate funds. Now, let's talk about this allowance system you had. I explained our spreadsheet and the monthly fund money allocation. Perfect, Arthur said, clapping his hands together. If we can produce the history of that spreadsheet showing a consistent pattern of both parties receiving an unconditional, discretionary allowance, then the $2,400 you spent is legally classified as your non-marital personal property. You had every legal right to burn it, bury it, or buy your mother a chair with it. Sarah's seizure of the joint funds in retaliation is an egregious overreach. Arthur leaned forward, his gaze locking onto mine. David, I need you to understand something. This is going to be a war. Your wife is obsessed with financial control. When she realizes she cannot control you anymore, she will try to destroy you financially. Are you ready to fight back? I thought about my mother's tired eyes, her crippled knees, and the way Sarah had referred to her as a bottomless pit of financial liability. I thought about the broken glass of my wedding photo on the floor. I'm ready, I said firmly. Do whatever it takes. Excellent, Arthur smiled. First step, we file for divorce tomorrow morning. We file an emergency motion to freeze all of her personal and business accounts until the wiped joint funds are returned to a neutral escrow account. And then, we sit back and watch her realize exactly how big of a mistake she made. Chapter 5, The gift arrives. Friday arrived. It was my mother's 65th birthday. Despite the chaos of my life, moving into Marcus's beautiful guest cottage, spending hours reviewing financial documents with Arthur, I made sure I was at my mother's apartment at 10 a.m. I had a small box of bakery pastries in my hand, trying my best to put on a cheerful face. My mom opened the door, her face lighting up with that beautiful, unconditional warmth that only a mother can provide. David, sweetie, you didn't have to come all this way on a workday. Happy birthday, Mom, I said, hugging her tightly. She felt so fragile in my arms. I felt a sudden, fierce pang of protective anger toward Sarah. How could anyone want to hurt this gentle woman? As we sat at her small kitchen table drinking tea, a loud air horn sounded from the street outside. A large delivery truck pulled up to the curb. Two delivery men in uniform stepped out, lowering a massive, heavily padded box from the liftgate. My mom looked out the window, confused. Oh dear, I think they have the wrong address. Nobody here ordered anything that big. They have the exact right address, Mom, I smiled, wiping a stray tear from my eye. Come on. I opened the door and guided her as the delivery men carefully wheeled the massive box up the ramp and into her small living room. They unboxed it with practiced efficiency, revealing the deep chocolate brown, plush leather orthopedic recliner. They plugged it into the wall, tested the heating elements, and showed me the remote control. My mom stood there, her hand pressed against her mouth, her eyes wide with complete disbelief. David, what is this? This looks incredibly expensive. It's your birthday present, Mom. It's a specialized medical chair. Look here. I took the remote and pressed a button. The chair gently and smoothly tilted forward, demonstrating how it would lift her to her feet without putting any pressure on her arthritic knees. I pressed another button, and the lumbar heat pads began to glow with a gentle warmth. Go ahead, I said softly. Try it out. She walked over slowly, her frame trembling, and lowered herself into the plush leather. The moment her body hit the cushions, I watched the tension completely melt from her face. She leaned her head back, pressing a button on the remote to activate the heat. A deep, shuddering sigh escaped her lips, and then, she began to cry. Not tears of sadness, but tears of pure, overwhelming relief from a lifetime of physical agony. David, she wept, reaching her hand out to me. I can't accept this. You and Sarah, you need this money for your house, for your future. I knelt beside the chair, taking her weathered, calloused hand in mine. Mom, Sarah has nothing to do with this. This is from me, just from me. You spent 20 years destroying your body to give me a future. It is my absolute privilege to spend my money to give you some peace and comfort. Don't you dare worry about the cost. It's paid for. It's yours. She held my hand tightly, pulling me close and kissing my forehead. Thank you, my beautiful boy. Thank you. Looking at her face, completely bathed in comfort and joy, I knew with absolute certainty that every single consequence I was currently facing, the homelessness, the legal battle, the destruction of my marriage, was completely worth it. If buying my mother this moment of peace cost me my relationship with Sarah, then it was the cheapest bargain I had ever made. Chapter 6. The Nuclear Retaliation. The peace of that beautiful afternoon didn't last long. At 4:15 p.m., my phone began to violently explode with notifications. Sarah was calling me repeatedly. I ignored the calls, as per Arthur's strict instructions. Then came the tidal wave of text messages. David, what the hell did you do? My personal account is frozen. I can't even buy groceries. My business credit card is declined. Are you out of your mind? You filed for divorce. Answer me right now. I took a deep breath, took a screenshot of the messages, and forwarded them directly to Arthur. 5 minutes later, Arthur texted me, the trap has sprung. She just received the emergency court injunction. Let her sweat over the weekend. Do not reply to a single word. On Monday morning, Arthur and I walked into the family courthouse for our first emergency hearing. Sarah was already there, sitting on a bench outside the courtroom next to her attorney, a sharp-looking woman in a dark navy suit named Brenda Vance, no relation to Arthur, ironically. The moment Sarah saw me, she stood up, her eyes blazing with absolute hatred. You cowardly piece of garbage, she hissed under her breath. You froze my accounts. You're trying to ruin my life over a chair. Sit down, Sarah, I said calmly, looking her dead in the eye. I didn't feel afraid anymore. The weekend of peace at Marcus's cottage had completely restored my clarity. Talk to my lawyer. Inside the courtroom, the judge, a no-nonsense, elderly woman named Judge Henderson, reviewed the filings. Sarah's lawyer stood up, adopting an outraged tone. Your Honor, the respondent's actions are completely disproportionate and malicious. He has frozen my client's separate personal accounts, causing her extreme financial distress, all in retaliation for a standard household marital dispute regarding a secret, unauthorized dissipation of $2,400 of marital funds by the respondent. Judge Henderson looked over her glasses at Sarah's lawyer, then turned her gaze to Arthur. Mr. Vance, what do you have to say for your client? Arthur stood up, adjusting his suit jacket with a calm, unbothered grace. Your Honor, we have submitted into evidence Exhibit A 5-year history of the parties' shared budgeting spreadsheet. This document clearly establishes that both parties operated under a mutual agreement regarding a monthly, discretionary fund money allowance. This money was legally separate, meant for personal spending with zero oversight required. Arthur stepped forward, handing a printed copy of Sarah's text messages to the bailiff to pass to the judge. Furthermore, Your Honor, Exhibit B shows that upon discovering my client used his saved personal allowance to purchase an orthopedic chair for his disabled mother, the petitioner engaged in immediate, unlawful retaliation. She wiped out the joint marital checking account, transferring every single dollar to her personal custody. She then textually extorted my client, stating he was barred from his own home unless he canceled the order. This is a clear case of financial coercion and constructive eviction. We filed the emergency freeze simply to preserve the status quo of the marital assets that the petitioner illegally seized. Judge Henderson read through the text messages. Her expression grew increasingly stern. She looked up and fixed Sarah with a piercing glare. Mrs. Miller, Judge Henderson said, her voice dripping with disapproval. Did you write these text messages? Sarah shifted uncomfortably in her seat, her face turning a pale, mottled white. Your Honor, I was angry. He spent a massive amount of money without consulting me. Answer the question, ma'am, the judge snapped. Did you tell your husband he was barred from his home unless he complied with your financial demands? Yes, Sarah whispered. Judge Henderson slammed her pen down onto her desk. This court will not tolerate financial abuse or emotional extortion as a budgeting tool. Wiping out a joint account to force compliance is an egregious violation of marital equity. The judge leaned forward, delivering her ruling with absolute finality. I am ordering that the petitioner immediately return 50% of the wiped joint funds to a neutral escrow account within 24 hours. The freeze on her personal accounts will be lifted only after those funds are verified. Furthermore, the respondent is granted immediate, exclusive possession of the marital residence pending the finalization of this divorce. Mrs. Miller, you have 48 hours to pack your personal belongings and vacate the premises. Sarah let out a sharp gasp, her mouth opening in complete horror. She turned to her lawyer, pleading silently, but her lawyer simply shook her head with a grim expression. I sat there, a profound sense of justice washing over me. The tables had turned completely. The woman who had thrown me out into the rain over an act of love was now being legally evicted from the very house she tried to use as a weapon against me. Chapter 7. The True Worth of a Man. 2 years have passed since that day in the courtroom. The divorce was long, bitter, and expensive, but Arthur fought like a demon. In the final settlement, the house was sold, and the assets were split evenly down the middle. Sarah tried to claim alimony, but the judge laughed it out of court due to her equal earning capacity and her documented financial misconduct during the separation. When the dust finally settled, I took my share of the equity, bought a charming, single-story ranch house on a beautiful, tree-lined street just 10 minutes away from my mother's apartment, and started a new chapter of my life. Tonight is Sunday. The weather outside is crisp and cool, but inside my new living room, it is incredibly warm. My mom is sitting in her chocolate brown orthopedic chair, which we moved into my house last year. She lives with me now. She has her own beautiful master suite, her own private bathroom, and she never has to worry about rent, medical bills, or stairs ever again. She's currently knitting a sweater, laughing at a comedy show on the television. Her knees still hurt from time to time, but she can stand up easily now, her face free of that terrible pain that used to break my heart. Marcus and his wife are over for dinner. We are sitting around the dining table, enjoying a home-cooked meal, laughing and sharing stories. There are no spreadsheets tracking every single penny. There is no heavy, suffocating silence of control. There is only love, freedom, and deep gratitude. Sometimes, I think back to that freezing night in the Walmart parking lot, shivering under my jacket, wondering if my life was completely ruined. And every single time, I smile. Because that night wasn't the end of my life, it was the beginning of my freedom. I learned that the true worth of a man isn't measured by the size of his investment portfolio or how perfectly he complies with a tyrannical spreadsheet. It's measured by his willingness to stand up for the people who sacrificed everything for him. Sarah kept her money, her control, and her isolation. But I kept my soul, my mother's smile, and my dignity. And that is a gift that money could never, ever buy.